If I had known there was going to be a death in the movie, I wouldn't have brought the children. That's what my friend's mother said when I was 8 years old and we went to see Bridge to Terabithia with her and her kids. She wasn't alone in this opinion. Bridge to Terabithia is one of the most banned books in US schools. My brother later remarked, God forbid we expose the children to a movie with a plot. That movie, its plot, the thing that my friend's mother and my brother said, it all lives in my mind long after both my brother and my friend's mother probably forgot about the entire experience. I recently reread the book, spoiler alerts, for the 5-star 1977 children's classic. It tells the story of two young outcasts that make a world of their own imagination, swinging across a rope over a creek into their fantasy world, Terabithia. The book felt much more real. Maybe it's because it's a book without animation, and the fantasy elements are definitely secondary in the book. Or maybe because I'm an adult now, or maybe because I knew what was going to happen. But at the end, when the sweet young girl, Leslie, who made the world of the narrator, Jess, so much more magical, when that girl was undone by the means of her own child magic and falls from the rope to her death, it felt so much more real. I don't know what closure means. I've been thinking about that recently. People talk about it. I hear the word. I know the appropriate context to use it in, but I don't know what it means. And in this book, in Bridge to Terabithia, there is no completion at the end. It just ends, but it's not complete. The girl, Leslie, is dead, but it's impossible to feel that the story is over. That's what it feels like when people go away. When you drift apart from someone and talk less and less until you no longer remember the last time you spoke. When you move far away and don't keep touch. And yes, even when someone dies. It's a big feeling when someone dies that settles into a low gnaw that maybe someday goes away. When it gets so low, you can no longer notice it. I remember the first time a peer died. The little kid at camp who had the squeaky voice, who came back the second year a few inches taller and with a man's voice that came from a child's mouth, but didn't come a third year because his sweet mother found him hanged in his bedroom closet. That memory lives in my mind like Bridge to Terabithia. What about life was so bad? What were the things that he never told anyone at camp that were haunting him in his own mind when he tied that knot around his neck? I thought about it a lot at first, and later less. But I never really stopped. Even with an answer, I don't think I could stop thinking about it, not completely at least. People talk about closure like they know what happened. But I know a lot of people who know exactly what happened to the body, but have no clue what happened to the person. Jess, the boy in Bridge to Terabithia, was heartbroken when he found out that they had cremated his friend and he would never see her again. Even more so, that they did so without even asking him first. But it's not about the body. It's not about seeing her. My sister said she knew when her dad had died. They didn't tell her. She just started crying. She always talked about how her father was with her, and she always wore the crucifix that he gave her. He was watching over her in spirit, or maybe just in her mind. That's the thing. The person, the mystery, the questions, whether they are dead or just gone, never completely go away, even when you have answers. I can't imagine that Jess ever feels like he has closure. But maybe Someday he won't notice the gnawing anymore. I don't think it's even just about her absence that gnaws him, but it's his own guilt. Leslie died while Jess was on a trip with a teacher. And Jess is often jealous in the book, and he's in love with his teacher. Instead of thinking to invite his dear friend on the trip with him, he goes off alone with his teacher to the museum. And he feels good that he can be alone with his teacher and that he will have an experience to tell Leslie about, an experience of his own. And afterwards, Jess must contend with the inevitable truth that had he thought to invite his friend to come with him, she would still be alive. And we as the readers, as outside observers, as anyone other than Jess, can understand that he is not responsible for the death of his friend. But we can also identify with that hard truth. When death comes, but not for you, it's almost impossible not to ask yourself, why? Did she deserve death more than you do? How could you have let it happen? These are some of the thoughts that must haunt Jess without any hope of closure. When Leslie is dead, Jess briefly thinks that the other students in school will treat him with some kind of respect for having suffered such a loss. He thinks that after Leslie, who was the fastest kid in school, is dead, he will now be the fastest kid in school. But when he gets to school, and all he feels is empty and alone, he also feels guilt and disgust with himself for having thought these things. Because when someone dies, looking for a silver lining, as we are so often taught to do in times of difficulty, can become just another reason to make ourselves feel bad. There's also, of course, the issue of Leslie's immortal soul. You see, Jess is raised in a Christian family, and Leslie isn't a Christian. Jess's sister, before Leslie's death, worries that she might burn in hell if she dies. And I think for Jess, this is a very real fear. But there's an underappreciated horror of the belief in hell. I remember the first time someone told me that my parents were going to burn in hell. I was 6 years old, and a child who seemed big at the time, but really he couldn't have been more than 12. He told me that. I've told that story before, and people often respond talking about how children can be cruel. The thing is, this isn't about children or bullying even. It's the legitimate belief of a significant portion of the country I grew up in. Just a few years later, in 2008, the year of our Lord, only 52% of American Christians thought Muslims could go to heaven. A slim majority. 53% of American Christians thought Hindus could go to heaven. Only 42% thought that atheists could get in. The truth is, only 73% thought that Catholics could get into heaven. Now, if a quarter of American Christians weren't sure if heaven's gates were open to Catholics, then what the hell hope did I have? When you stop to think about it, when you think about the millions of people in your own country who really don't seem that different to you, and how they think that your parents deserve to be tortured for eternity when they only know one thing, their religion, and you think, wow, they must really believe that your parents are evil. But you know, deep down in your own heart, that your parents aren't evil. It's a ridiculous thought. It's like there's this veil cast over their eyes that stops them from seeing you as you are. And I've never been on the other end of that specific veil, although I often do wonder what veils I carry that block my vision without noticing it. But I have to imagine it's difficult to be someone's friend, to truly know them as a person and love them, but maintain the belief that the other person really should burn in hell. And this is the problem for Jess, not only in terms of the emotional distress he faces, thinking about how his friend might be being tortured in hell, but for his until now unquestioned faith. It is a problem. His father explains that God wouldn't send any little girl to burn in hell. And I think it helps, because it's hard to believe that God would send Leslie to burn in hell. But in the back of Jesse's mind has to be the question of, when does someone become too old to get a pass? If Leslie had died 10 years later, would it really be easier to accept that she should burn in hell? What about her parents? Hell is easy to believe in when you don't know anyone there, and there is often no easy way to resolve this conflict when you do. Closer makes it sound like you know what happened, and the feeling can go away. But neither of these feel true to me. The feeling lasts, and we never really can know what happened. Whether there's a loving God that sends you off to eternal bliss, or you come back as a beautiful butterfly, or everything just comes to an end. Now, I mentioned that this is one of the most banned books in U.S. schools. Challenges to this book have arisen because its use of language to use Lord in a non-religious context. Its depiction of children is having a fantasy world and pretending to do magic. The reason this book is banned is because of fear. Many children play imaginary games and use language you might not like. If you don't want your child reading this book because of this, it's because you are afraid of them seeing children depicted in a believable manner. Of course, the other reason people are afraid of children reading this book is because they are afraid of death. They are afraid that their children cannot handle reality, that they cannot face the death of an innocent child, an innocent young character, without the neat bow of closure. And while it is a sad book, it is a deeply powerful and beautiful book. And the truth is, death will come for your child, and your fear of them reading about it in this book, that fear will serve as no real protection. But the real fear, I think, of this book, the cause of so many people's cowardice of this book, is the idea that even though it was written by a former missionary and a minister's wife, it will expose your children to atheism, and it will change them. They will no longer be Christians. Your children believe what you have told them based on the strength of your authority. But to fear that they will abandon your teaching the second they find the mere existence of other thoughts, then you are a coward. This book doesn't depict anyone inaccurately. It doesn't make a strong argument for anything. It doesn't use harmful or incorrect stereotypes. It just uses a few fictional characters, and believable fictional characters at that, to show us how part of this world, our world, is. And if you are afraid this will change your children's beliefs, then you have no true faith in those beliefs. If your child is reasonable and well-read, and your beliefs are true, your children will accept them on the merit of their evident truth, and not on your sole authority. If you are afraid of your child being exposed to atheists, let them read books about and by atheists so that they can see the evils of atheism for themselves. If you are afraid of your child being exposed to gays, let them read books about and by gay people. If you are afraid of your children being exposed to Christianity, let them read the Chronicles of Narnia and see if they can find any evil in Christianity. The more we read, the more we see the world, and the easier it is to see the lies and simplifications of the world. If you have faith in the truth of your beliefs, let your children read and explore every argument, everything against your beliefs, to see how strong they really are. And if you are an earnest seeker of the truth, read widely so that you may see as many perspectives as possible. Now, I'm not a Christian and I'm not a conservative, so if there are any Christian or conservative books, really any books of any perspective that I should explore, drop a comment with your suggestions. If you'd like to see me talk about Holes, the other great children's book I reviewed recently, and why I don't understand the book, you can do so over here. But before I go, I'd just like to say good night, good day, and good potato.